Hello, good evening, and thank you for joining us from the UK, other places. I'm here in the US at the moment. I don't even know if we have people joining us from Nigeria or not. I believe we have someone who's joining us from Gaza. So we have people from all over the place joining us today. Thank you very much for coming to celebrate Rebecca Stonehill and her latest book, The River Days of Rosie Crow, which we have been publishing, which we published. I'm here with Alan Gillett, who's the other half of Stairwell Books. And we are delighted to be talking about the book. We'll be talking with Rebecca. We have two support readers from, including Lizzie Dunford, a poet, and Lucy Lowe's Paget, who'll be reading from an upcoming novel. So you can order the book and have it sent to you, and Alan will talk to you briefly about that right now. So Alan, why don't you talk to us about how the folks get the book through the screen? I'm not sure it comes through the screen. So how are we going to do that?
Well, I have just put the URL to our website on the chat, um, and you might as well see me while I'm here. Um,
Yeah.
and um, and that will take you to our website. And then there is a coupon which you can use. It's just like those cheap coupons that you get when you're ordering stuff online. Buy within the next 2 hours by entering this code type of thing. Except it it lasts for a couple of weeks to give you time to think about it and decide you want to order extra books for all your friends and frenemies. And it's pretty straightforward. I've just got to go and find the coupon, and I'll put that in the chat too. Here it is. It is case sensitive, so you need to be cautious as you type it in.
I just get there it is. There it is. Cool.
And that's about it. Um, I the order that I put in to cover this event hasn't come in yet, so there may be a day or two before I dispatch them. And if I have more orders than I ordered, there might be a slight delay, but don't worry, you will get your books. I have three already, so that are using that coupon, so I know it works.
Excellent. Actually, thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. Right. Okay, I have a couple of little bits of housekeeping. Now, normally when I do an event in person, I tell you where the exits are and how to find the loo. Clearly, we don't need that right now. But we are actually recording this event. And eventually, those of you at home won't be on, but the speakers who read will be on. I think Rebecca or Maya, just make sure it's speaker view on whatever machine is recording it. And so that's the only people that will show up. And otherwise, you can just turn your camera off if you wish. And so that way it can be on the Stairwell Books YouTube channel. We can see it later. You can share it with friends. And this is a great way of capturing Rebecca reading from her book so that we can have that as well. And it's an amazing book. I can't laud it enough. Thank you. Right. So to briefly start, Stairwell Books has been going for about 20 some odd years. And we started off doing poetry. So Lizzie, we love poetry. We're poets. But we branched into novels about 15 or so years ago and really went into that. And my rule really is that for us to take a book on, it has to be so good. I would have gone into a bookstore and bought it myself. And this book passed that test. It is engaging. It is wonderful. It is it is the historic look at the Norwich area a couple hundred years ago, and a modern woman navigating modern life and how you deal with all of that. So what we're going to do is we'll have a support reader, and then we'll hear from Rebecca, and then we'll have a support reader, and then I believe Rebecca and I are going to have a little question and answer, a little bit of an interview, and then you can feel free to please either chime in with your own question if you want to unmic yourself at that point, or put it in the chat, and I'm happy to read it out to you. And we will probably have a short break in the middle for just a break from screen times, and that sort of thing. But that's going to be pretty much the outlay of the evening. If anyone wants to ask a quick question, please go ahead and do, please. And if not, we're just going to get going. If the signal gets iffy, says Alan. Yes, that's a good point. We've done a lot of Zoom open mics. If the signal gets iffy for anyone anywhere, if you turn off your video feed, it will help you get the good signal in. Ideally, not the readers. That's happened before, but not that often. And just a few cameras being off will help. But we seem to be having a pretty good signal right now. So let's get going. Right.
I'm just,
Yeah.
it's 11 o'clock in the morning here in
Okay.
Canada, in BC. I might have to disappear because I've got other projects that I'm busy.
That's entirely fine. I'm here in Minnesota, and it's 1 PM here. So
Okay. Yeah.
I do get it. And when we do our
Yeah.
open mic, there's people from Malaysia, and they just kind of vanish because for them it's 3 or 4 in the morning.
And
Yeah,
Rose,
well,
just to quickly say that for people that need to know what time it's finishing, we'll be done by 8:30, okay?
Yes, thank you very much. Exactly so. It's about an
okay.
hour and a half. About an hour and a
Yeah.
half.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
Excellent. Okay. Well, where do I start? So we had a fabulous launch in Norwich, and that was absolutely amazing. And I'm delighted to be doing this Zoom launch. So, who I would like to, I'm sorry, I'm just discombobulated because I'm at work right now. It's just so odd for me. Anyway, I would love to hear right now from Lizzie Dunford, who is a poet and is going to come up and share some of her work. And I'm looking forward to hearing you for the first time, Lizzie. Everyone else, if you would please mute your mics, that's probably all for the best in case the phone rings or something like that happens. And that way we won't have any intrusions.
Okay, thank
So-
you. Is that it? Okay. Am I unmuted? Yeah, okay, it keeps muting. And this first poem was from one of those exercises that Rebecca gave us. She asked us to choose from a whole page of nature words and to just keep repeating them and see what happened. And I chose gorse, or quin, as it's known in Northern Ireland, where I come from originally. So here we go. Gorse. I am gorse, gaudy, gorgeous, brash, coarse. I am gorse, tough, harsh, dense, bush. I am gorse, spikes, spines, pea flower petals. I am gorse, yolk yellow, fingers and thumbs. I am gorse, stone shacked shelter, yellow hammer home. I am gorse, French fuzz, honey bottle. I am gorse, purple pods, crack, clack. I am gorse, fuel, fodder, furs, whin. I am gorse. I am gorse. I am gorse. Thank you. And from one yellow flower to another, I didn't know. I've only been, I got my copy of Rosie Crow this week, and I've been making my way through it with great joy. And what I didn't realize was I had already chosen the poems to read for tonight, and they're all about wildflowers, but I didn't know that Rebecca's each chapter is named after a wildflower. So that's serendipity. So the first one is dandelion, yeah, a brash yellow flower. Dandelion. Officially Taraxacum officinalis, but we go under many names. Blowball, telltime, clockflower, priest crown, monk's head, Irish daisy, milkwitch, cankerwort, swine snout, piss a bed. Our gang prefers lion's tooth. We extroverts like to congregate in crowds, not fussy about location, meadows, motorway verges, paving cracks, though we like to glam it up too, romp through rose beds, frolic on formal lawns. They say we are brazen, irresponsible, scattering our seed, but who draws the line between wildflower and weed? They've tried for years to get rid of us, but we're good, healthy stock. Thrive almost anywhere. We will survive. And from the extrovert dandelion to a slightly quieter flower, I think, the daisy, the sort that grows on the lawn. This one's called Bellis perennis. Yolk yellow pupils, fringed with white lashes, pink-tipped. We peer at the sun, dawn to dusk, day's eye. Frills fresh laundered round our flat faces. He loves me not. We hug the ground with our spoon-shaped leaves, humble, humdrum, underfoot. We speak in low tones, but we are many, sociable introverts. Spray us, tear us, trample us. We will push up again. Sprinkle hundreds and thousands of tiny suns and stars over your green. And one more wildflower, this is the last one. This one I had to read really because it's April and the bluebells are out. And this week I made a pilgrimage I make every year really to a lovely wood near us up in the East Midlands. You can see the decommissioned power station in the distance. It's a beautiful bluebell wood, and I think it's a spiritual experience. I realize I wrote this poem a couple of years ago, and it was late April when the bluebells were in full bloom, but they're earlier this year. So anyway, this one's called Rites of Spring. Rites of Spring. Every year, towards the end of April, we set out on our quest, leave the car and the world behind outside the pub, push through a rusty gate into a field where massed choirs of dandelions sway in sunlight, belt out soul music in a cappella yellow. We keep to the narrow path by the hedge, lacy as a bride with blackthorn blossom, listen to the treble solo of the robin, cross the stream to its green leaf chapel, dip fingers in holy water, then climb the grassy hill. We pause at every stile, look back to see distant warehouses like Lego bricks, cooling towers rising from the haze, a 20th century cathedral. This year, when we reach the summit, we find a rickety fence around the sacred wood, have to peer to see the bluebells. Still, when I glimpse that almost purple, feel lightheaded. My heart pounds a prayer, and I wonder if the farmer put up the fence not just to stop the theft of holy relics, but to keep ecstatic pilgrims safe from an excess of beauty. Thank you very much.
Let me unmute myself. Is that you, Lizzie? Is that your set?
That's me. That's me.
Thank you so much. And that was so funny how appropriate that was, because at the heading of each chapter there are wild plants, and this is how Rosie Crow would have seen the world and how she would have understood the world, and that is just so fitting. That's what you just happened together. That's grand. And I am missing the bluebills right now. I do love the English bluebell season. It's wonderful. Lizzie, those are great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely love that. Thank you. Right. Rightio. So, I think we're going to hear from Rebecca. I'm trying to rethink how the evening's going to go. I'm almost tempted to since I think you're only going to read once, Rebecca. I'm almost tempted to go right on to have Lucy, if that's okay. Is that all right if I readjust everything that way? I'm not even sure we need a break. I'm not convinced. So, is that all right?
Yeah, I don't mind. Absolutely
Yeah,
fine.
I really love that idea. I just think it looks like it would just fit so much nicer. So thank you. Lucy, Lucy Lowe's Paget, are you ready to read, darling? I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Introduce yourself because I've never really met you before and tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. So, as you can see by my name, I'm Lucy Paget, or Lucy Lowe's Paget. And I live in Nicaragua in Central America. And I've known Bex for a really long time. We met in our 20s. And one of the things that's just, well, the best, perhaps the best thing, there's many best things, but one of the best things is that we've spoken about writing for so long. And then I began writing years and years ago, but it's taken me since my 20s, now into my late 40s, to get to the point where I have a book that is ready to go into publishing. And here Bex is with this incredible wealth of written work that's in the world and such beautiful poetry. So it's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm really grateful. And I love Bex's writing. And I thought it was really lovely that Lizzie had a poem about dandelions, because this morning as I was editing my book, I was working on a piece about dandelions, and it was just, that really made me smile. I thought that was really cool. So I'm going to read you a couple of short excerpts from my book, which is called The Home Tree. And the home tree is named after the tree that actually is behind me, which I know it's pretty bright and sunny, so you can't really see, but in the window behind me that you can make out maybe a few bits of foliage, and it's a big guanacaste tree, and I call it the home tree. And the story that I've written, the book that I've written, is about my life, and it weaves in some magical characters, and it's about nature and the balance and steadiness that I have found in nature to calm me as I bump into the trickier things of life. So the two pieces I'm going to read you are both from they're kind of like fractals. They're little pieces that are poetic, and they are more in the genre of magical realism, because through the book, the way I weave my book is there's a chunk about a time of my life, and then I go into the land of fantasy. And it just felt right today to dip into a couple of sections that are more fantastical than the actual nuts and bolts of my life with the chickens and turkeys and dogs and things like that. So the first that I'm going to read you is called A Spell for Many Things. For a soft path underfoot, for wildflowers and views that provide hope, beauty, and assurance, that tricksters may be easily identified instead of hidden in the hawthorns, that wise counsel remains available, and that I will not fall flat on my face. The guanacaste, i.e. the home tree, reaches her limbs towards me and echoes, in her own way, words that just a moment ago, a slip away in another place, the bone mother would have told me. But the bone mother is gone now. I am returned to the world as it is. The home tree and the very spirit of the land respond to my call, my prayer spell, and I hear their answer. Walk the wisdom path. It is underfoot, under your very feet. Guidance and support is all around you. Welcome home. So that's the first piece. And in it, you've just met three of my favorite characters: the home tree, the bone mother. The bone mother is the one you go to if you deserve a second chance and you're ready to finally listen to good advice. I brought her in because I wanted to use something that wasn't my voice to be a voice of wise counsel. And then the trickster is La Triquiñuela, who you will meet briefly in the next piece that I'm going to read. So I'm going to go straight into the next piece, which is called The Song of Ideas. A song with 1,000 tones disassembled itself into parts and pieces and scattered like blossom blown on the wind. There are some people who say the world responds to clarity of vision. They say, paso a paso, one step at a time, just one thing. I find it hard to take one step at a time, or to do just one thing. Maybe it's because the song with 1,000 tones disassembled is a patchwork quilt, an ecosystem waiting to be reunited, and the blossoms blow around me as ideas wanting to take form. These ideas do not want to be made into spreadsheets or checklists or 5-year plans. They whisper that will take the energy out of them. These ideas want to take to the sky and spread their wings. The 1,000 tones disassembled are not lonely. They'll come together again. They know they are parts of a bigger plan. There are just a few who can see how ideas fit with each other, even when they're made by different people. La triquiñuela sees the big picture. Trees see the big picture. So does the sky. I catch glimpses of it. It feels to me the ideas burst from my inner realm. Where did they come from? Did I swallow them as seeds from my own garden, or breathe them in from the sky? Did they traverse through the mountains of one world into the landscape of my mind through secret doors and underground waterways? Sometimes they want to burst into life fast and become real with their own inner volition. Volar, to fly. Or is that my impatience? Threshold, I remember. A song of 1,000 tones disassembled, each one an idea to be realized, a note to be formed and struck, a sound to be made real. They flutter around me and I run to catch them. I remember the tropical green parakeets who darted through the London sky and made the world brighter. They're here now too, but the ones of this land have red under their wings. Wonder. It's as important to me as when I was a child. There is an order. It is not linear. There is collaboration. It is not linear either, not even in time. The song with 1,000 tones disassembled is a wildflower garden ready to bloom. But will they be allowed? Will they flourish? Who else will tend the ideas that will make the world more beautiful, safer, healthier? The 1,000 tones dance on a light wind and rain dashes its way through them. Thunder rumbles nearby. Lights blink in the grass, fireflies. Some blink into blackness. The wind is coming to clean out the cobwebs. I can hear it in the distance. It will bring its disturbance, loud and insistent. It will tear through me just as it will the trees in the sky. Be careful, something whispers. And that is the end.
Thank you very much. That sounds fascinating. When is your book due out?
Probably in a couple of months.
Okay, cool.
It was meant to be out now, but I would say 3 more months. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. I was fascinated by hearing the wind behind you, and I didn't realize you were coming from Nicaragua until you said that, and I just think it's awesome. We're all from different places, or many of us are. That's a country I've never been to. I have been into Brazil, but I've worked in the Caribbean, but I've never made it to Nicaragua, so that's really cool. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me here.
Right. Awesome. Rightio. Let me turn off this big message that says this meeting is being recorded, and it says okay. And I was afraid to click it when I noticed it. I was afraid it'd make a noise in the middle of your reading. And I said, I'll just wait. I'll just wait. Right. So the main event. Rebecca has been trying to find the right section to read that won't tip out too many, too many spoilers, but will just encapsulate Rosie Crow as best as possible. And this book is it's a parallel story set in the past and also set in the future, and you follow the stories along as they travel along. And I love historical fiction, so that's there. And I really love the modern literary fiction, the story that's in here as well. Until the night of your in-person launch, Rebecca, I don't think I had took on board that you have written and published 5 books. So when I was reading the manuscript, I thought, this is so assured. Gosh, this is great. And I knew you had done at least one more because I could see it in your signature, but that explains that. So Rebecca, please come on to the main screen or whatever and join us and tell us a little bit about these twin worlds that you have created. So welcome to Rebecca.
you so much, Rose. And I just wanted to say how lovely it is to see old friends and newer friends and friends yet to be who I haven't met yet, but it's just really wonderful to see so many of you here this evening. And yeah, big thanks to Rose and Alan for making all of this possible, and to my wonderful guest readers, Lizzie and Lucy. Thank you. I absolutely love listening to your work, and I knew you'd be the perfect choices, so thank you. Yeah, so the twin worlds. Well, when I write my books, I always really like having more than just one time frame. So in previous books, they tend to be sagas, it's not just one time. I'll do maybe over 2 or 3 generations. And this one is much, much wider than that. I really zoomed far out. And we've got a young girl in 1830s rural Norfolk, and then we have someone in modern day rural Norfolk, and they have very similar names. And people have said to me, "Why on earth have you called your 1830s character Rosie and your modern day character Rose? Why would you give them such similar names?" But there is a very good reason for that. And actually, it's not a secret, so I can tell you it's because Rose, the modern day character, when she's had a very difficult time, she's had a bit of a breakdown. She goes from London to rural Norfolk to stay with an elderly relative of her friend, just to have a complete breakaway from London. And she finds this old family tree in his drawer, and she sees this name which is quite similar to her. She's Rose Crawford. The name that she sees is Rosie Crow. But yeah, I really wanted to explore. I guess I like thinking about cause and effect, so how the actions of one person can have, what happens from the actions of that person all this time later. And these two are, their lives are so closely intertwined, even though I can't give anything away. It's not at all obvious when you first start reading, and then you have to wait to see how their lives come together. But really, they breathe one another into being. They come to be who they need to be. They become fulfilled through the existence of one another. So I just thought that would add a really interesting element, rather than just having this straight historical fiction. I always like to have, yeah, the 2 dimensions, 2 or 3 dimensions in it.
Excellent. That's cool. So why don't you start by giving us start by doing a reading, and then we can have a chat about we can do some interviewing things. So yes, please introduce us to Rosie Crow.
Thank you. So the piece I've chosen to read to you. So just to give you a tiny bit of background to Rosie. So we meet her when she's quite young, when she's 6. This bit, she's a few, maybe 4 years older than that, 4 or 5 years older, but she is deeply, deeply connected to the natural world. By today's standards, she would probably be called autistic, but obviously back then there was none of that. And so people just found her strange, that she didn't like playing with the other children. Her mother is not alive anymore. She's raised by her father, who's a weaver in rural Norfolk, in the village of Marsham, which was a weaving village in North Norfolk, and also by an elderly herbalist who called Old Clara, who steps in to help with Rosie's care after her mother dies. And so one of the things that Rosie has to do with Old Clara is she has to take medicines to the local villagers when they're ill. That's one of her jobs to do. And this is a really significant scene for Rosie, because it's when she finally discovers what she wants to do with the stories that she believes the river is telling her. So she honestly believes that the river is talking to her. And so I don't kind of make a judgment about that in the book. I invite the reader to think for themselves, is that possible? Can a river talk to you? I'm offering that as an invitation. Can more than human beings communicate with us? As far as Rosie's concerned, 100% yes. And so she's illiterate, she's very poor. The river is talking to her. But this is a significant scene for her, because it's finally, she's like, okay, I need to do something with this. So yeah, as it was mentioned, each chapter heading takes the name of a wildflower or a plant, which I just gently weave into the plot of that chapter. I wrote this book mainly during lockdown, and I think a lot of us took up new hobbies during lockdown. One of the things that I got fascinated by is that we had our family's daily walk was down to the allotment, and I just started paying so much closer attention to all the weeds and the wildflowers straggling through the bushes and on the pavements, and I started taking photos of them and uploading them to iNaturalist, and then also then cross-checking in this old book of wildflowers that belonged to my grandmother, and I just became fascinated by their culinary and medicinal uses, which of course was once so widespread and everybody knew about that, and now we don't know so much. So I'm just trying to pique people's interest by bringing this back in. So this is valerian then. Despite the sharp autumnal wind, Rosie dawdled as she went, humming and rolling a dandelion root between her fingers. Old Clara had said she needed to get there quick as she could, because the child had whooping cough and the mistress had a bad case of melancholy. Wedged into her armpit in a bundle was a decoction of honey, powdered rosemary, valerian, castor, and musk. There was also a pouch tied up with string containing featherfew tea to be drunk before taking the medicine. Rosie knew what whooping cough was, but not the slightest idea what kind of malady the melancholy was. It must be bad, though, if the mistress had to take all these remedies. Rosie stood back and gazed at the house for a while, itching absently at the inside of her elbows. The house was bigger than any she'd seen before, ivy creeping up the bricks. Then she walked up to the door and let the brass knocker fall back and waited. To her surprise, a maid opened the door, decked out in black with a white apron and bonnet. "I got medicine," Rosie said, "for the whooping cough, and the missus with the melancholy." The maid nodded severely and thumbed round the side. "Take it round there," she said. "You'll see the side door. Cook's in there. Give it to her." A house with a maid and a cook? These must be moneyed folk living here, Rosie thought, resuming her humming as she walked around the outside of the house. She found the back door immediately and knocked on it, scuffing her feet as she waited. But there was no reply. She couldn't even hear anyone moving about in there. She knocked again. Nothing. Rosie retraced her steps and pressed her nose against the window. It was hard to see anything at first, it was so dim in the kitchen. But as her eyes grew accustomed to it, she saw a figure on a wooden settle by the unlit hearth, utterly absorbed in something in front of her. Rosie pressed her nose harder against the cold glass and squinted. The lady, cook presumably, looked as though she was scarcely breathing, her fingertips resting lightly on something, and her lips parted in anticipation. It was paper of some sort, or a book, Rosie thought. She rapped lightly on the window, sure that she'd be noticed this time. But still, the woman didn't stir. Rosie watched her entranced, the woman's big hand resting on the page so gently it was as though she was handling delicate lace. Fair strands of hair escaped from beneath the cook's bonnet, and she looked as though she was scarcely blinking or breathing. As Rosie stared through the window, hardly blinking herself, the cool October air seemed to shift and close around her. The silence audible. And though she had no idea what the cook was looking at, she knew she had to get a closer look at it. Rosie rapped again, this time louder, and the cook started. She laid a hand on her heart and straightened her bonnet, laying down the book on the settle and resting her hand on it possessively, as though it were the finest worsted, the kind her father wouldn't let her touch. Once the door was opened, Rosie saw the cook was flustered, her cheeks burning. "Who are you, child?" she snapped. "What do you want?" "I've been sent by old Clara," Rosie said, handing over both of the pouches to her. "It's medicine for the missus." "Oh, yes," said the cook, whipping it from her hand. "Payment been given to old Clara for this already, hadn't it?" Rosie nodded. "Old Clara said to try find a dark-coloured spider in the house with the miss and hold it over the child." The cook tutted. "It don't work, I tell you. We tried that 2 years ago with the master's whooping cough, and it got far worse before it got better. I keep a tidy kitchen, I do. What are them spiders going to be doing in my pantry?" She waved a hand impatiently through the air. "I ain't spending the next several hours looking for them creepy crawlies. Just remind me what I need to do if I do find one." "Hold it over the missus' head and 3 times say the words,
Spider as you waste away, whooping cough no longer stay. And don't forget, Rosie continued, you need to hang the spider up in a bag over the mantel shelf, and when the spider's all dried up, cough will have gone. The cook continued nodding and tried to bustle Rosie out, keen for her to be gone. Right then. Rosie peered past the cook. What was that you were looking at before? What do you mean, girl? That. Rosie pointed her finger and marched straight past the cook towards the settle where she lifted up the book and peered at it. Lord Almighty! The cook screeched, hurtling towards Rosie and snatching it firmly from her hands. Of all the cheek! Who said you could look at my chapbook? I only want to know what it is, missus. Why? The cook hid it behind her back and jutted out her bottom lip, bringing her face up close to Rosie. You just look so, I don't know, missus, so lost in it. At that, the cook's face softened. Ah, that I was. Lost in it. It's a storybook, that's what. You know reading? Of course I know reading, otherwise I wouldn't be reading it now, would I? Can I look at it? The cook tightened her grip on the chapbook behind her back. Please. The cook shook her head and brought out the chapbook. Rosie's hands immediately flew outwards to inspect it, but the cook battered them away. No, you don't. You can see it perfectly well, me showing you. Rosie peered up close at the indecipherable spider-black writing that crept along the pages, her eyes widening as the cook turned the page to reveal an intricate woodcut illustration. It was, Rosie thought, one of the most beautiful things she had ever seen. Where do you get this? There's a peddler comes round every month with a stack of 'em. Not too costly neither. With that, the cook decisively shut the chapbook and put it behind her back once again. How old are you, girl? 12. Can you read? No. Rosie stared at her fervently, her luminous eyes gleaming. Will you learn me? With that, the cook expelled a hoot of laughter as though she'd never heard such a great entertainment. Will I learn you? Will I learn you? You think I got time for that sort of thing? What with all the cooking and demands in this house, especially with the missus and her melancholy. She rolled her eyes heavenwards. Go on now, girl, clear off. I got work to do. But I saw you. You wasn't working. You was reading. I saw you. At that, the cook's eyes bulged and her jawline set, and she made a motion with her hand as though to say she'd hit Rosie if she weren't careful. Get out of here, girl. Go on. You disturbing me now. Rosie gave the chapbook one final, longing gaze and then slipped out of the back door. She turned round to look at the cook, vast hands and sweaty brow. I want to learn reading, missus. If you'll ever learn me, I'll... And with that, the door was shut in her face. Walking back the 3 miles to old Clara's along the track rutted with cartwheels and framed with poplars, Rosie felt a strange lightness in her step that wasn't there when she'd walked towards her errand. Of course, she'd seen a few people reading before and thought nothing of it. In church, for example, on the few occasions that she and her father would go. But that was the parson reading from the holy book, or the odd villager's rudimentary grasp on a prayer in the psalm book. This was the first time that Rosie had witnessed anybody reading a storybook. She had seen in the face of the cook, and the way her entire body reacted, the pleasure reading brought her. Something had responded deep inside Rosie Crow. As she flung back her head and sang more lustily than ever before, she became quietly aware of 2 things. That she had spoken more words in the past 5 minutes than she had done in a very long time, and that in a way she could only feel inside her but not understand, she had crossed a threshold from which there could be no return.
Oh, that's wonderful. If you want to unmute yourself, you can give a little applause. And actually, let's just give a little bit of applause to Rebecca for your achievement of bringing out your 5th book. Come on, unmute yourself and give her a bit of applause.
That
Yay.
was brilliant, Becca.
That was great.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Incredible.
really, really
This
good
made
stuff.
me curious to read the book.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I bought the book just now online while you were reading.
Well done. You were inspired.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Right. So if you need to step away and take a quick break, do that. But we're just going to keep on going, I think,
Yeah,
because you can always,
yeah,
yeah,
I've got to
yeah, I think it's
disappear.
Thank
okay.
you for
Well,
making
Christina,
the-
thank you for joining us.
Oh,
And
you're welcome.
yeah,
No, it was good to see Becca. I mean, her grandmother was my godmother, right?
neat, neat.
I love that.
I have a
Cool.
special nickname with the Thompson family and all who live in it. They call me Smithers.
I like that. It's a good nickname.
Thanks for coming, Smithers. Yeah, and if you do need to go, that's fine. We're gonna do that. There's gonna be like if you want to ask me any questions, Rose, is that what we're gonna do after the short break?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No, I've got to run. So
That's fine. Go for it.
Okay. Well, it was nice to meet you all and see you all, and I'll be looking at your site.
Thanks. Thanks,
excellent.
Smithers. Take care.
Bye. You too. Bye.
Bye. What we will be doing is putting this recorded session. We're going to edit a little bit in the beginning and whatnot, and we'll be putting it up on the Stairwell Books YouTube channel. And then I will be sending the link to Rebecca, and she can send it out to anyone who wishes it, anyone who wants to hear the reading again, or like Christina, she may want to, or Smithers, she may want to hear the question and answer and anything else that happens later on. So you can just always send it right to her, right?
Yeah, Rose, so did you say we're gonna have a 5-minute break?
Just, I think, not much more than
Oh, not
5.
even, not even. Yeah, please
Yeah,
don't go, everyone. I would love you to
yeah.
stick
I
around
just, I
just for a
think we
bit
can
longer.
just. The
Yeah, well,
good
let's
thing
just keep
is
going. I mean,
that's
yeah, if
what I
people need
meant. That's
just a minute or two, if you need to like take a comfort break or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. When we're in a live event, there's lines for the loo. There's lines for some more wine or some juice. People go out and might have a cheeky cigarette, but you can do that now and we won't even know. So that's why you don't really need a long one when it's Zoom. Just kind of, don't have to watch the screen so much. Um, yes, so I think what'll be coming up is a few questions that I will be asking, a little interview for Rebecca, because I have ideas. I mean I have questions I want to have answered. And then anyone who wishes to join into that can either unmute themselves and ask the question or put it in the chat and I'll read it on your behalf. So either of those things is fine. Alan has put the link up and it sounds as if it's been working. So that's really good. And we will be bringing this book to book festivals throughout the UK. We were at EasterCon in Birmingham. We'll be in Scotland at FantasyCon in October. And Alan will have the book, if you're anywhere near Manchester, he'll have the book at on the 25th of April in I don't know, about a week in Manchester Central Library as part of the Northern Publishers Fair. So we do events like that throughout the year, and then other launches will have your book on the table. And then, yeah, I think we're also going to be thinking of doing a Yola Book Flood in York this November, early December. We did it a few years ago, right as COVID restrictions eased and people were allowed to and wanted to go out of their house. And Yola Book Flood is the Yule Book Festival, the flood of books that are released and enjoyed in it's Iceland or Finland, I should remember. Yeah,
Iceland, yeah. We do that in
thank
our
you.
family as well. Yeah.
Iceland.
Iceland, thank you. And it's their big book buying festival of the year. And so we did that and we had a lot of fun doing that. Right. So plunging straight ahead then. And let me put this back on speak. I don't know. There's a way to put it like multi-speaker view, but I'm not always good at that. If you want to fiddle, Maya, you can. And you can just have up 2 people at a time if you wish. Otherwise, it's fine. It's fine. So we were discussing what to do. You know what? First, I'm going to thank, and I'll do this again at the end, but I really want to thank Lizzie Dunford for your poetry. It just suited the mood. It suited the book. It suits the springtime. It suits the season. It suits us. It's important to remember that life goes on And so-called weeds are just really successful flowers, and they often have incredibly important value to locals who understand their how to use them and how to brew them up or how to use the roots. Like dandelion. Dandelion root is amazing. And you can eat dandelions. You can eat a lot of things like roses and I think chrysanthemums, which amazes me. And Lucy Lowe's Paget, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'll be looking forward to reading that when your book comes out. And when it's released to the wild. It does always take longer for a book to come out. It takes a village to raise a book, and it just, no matter what your plans are, and it does take that little bit extra. And time is your friend, and it's best to make sure everything is good than it is to rush something out. And even with that, there's a typo in Rosie Crow. But it's okay because we've all read textbooks that have massive typos. And we've all seen them in things that are also churned out quickly, like newspaper articles. So we're human, and that's what happened. Rightio. So, Rebecca, I'm gonna do a little bit of interviewing of you. I'm gonna ask maybe 3 or 4 questions. And anybody that has anything that comes to them at any point, you can put it into the chat so you won't forget. You will not interrupt me. You will not bother me at all. You will not bother us. And then that'll be a record of what you wanted to ask in case, so you don't forget it, right? Right. So one of the first questions that, well, I have several. Yes. Well, as usual. I mean, I think I know this by now, but Rebecca, to do this particular book at this particular time, what was your actual inspiration? What was it that it all just fell together and you went, you know what, I have to write this down. So what was that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because people often say, well, where do you get your ideas from and how do you start writing a new novel? And it's always really different. There's a different answer for all of those. So it could be that like previous books somewhere that I've been living, that I've been very inspired by, for example, Spain and Nairobi, or my mother's travels in Crete in the 60s. But this one, well, for a start, I knew that I really wanted to finally set a book here on my homeland, my home turf of England. I'd never done that before. I don't know why, I just hadn't, because I'm, yeah, always intrigued by foreign lands. But I knew I wanted to set a book in England. And then several years ago, I read, yeah, it's going back a little while, but I read A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. And there was a passage in that that really struck me. And she talks about, it was something along the lines of when you read of a witch being ducked or a wise woman selling herbs, actually you're on the track of a lost novelist or a suppressed poet. And so I started really thinking about that, and I thought, yeah, that's so interesting. You know, now women are really celebrated for writing, but of course that wasn't the case for so many years. Like either, you know, if they were poor, they couldn't write, or even if they weren't poor, they had to write under a man's name, that kind of thing. So that was the initial like little kernel, I think, that inspired me. And I think there's been so many novels understandably set in the witch trial era because it's fascinating and truly horrifying. But I thought, well, what about those years post official witch trials, but when superstition really, really clung on? So yeah, that was the initial inspiration. And then I think probably a few years after that, I was walking through a market in East London and I came across this little plaque which said that wife sellings took place there. And I tried looking it up, I tried finding out more information, and there was so little to be found about it. But I did read, I was pointed in the direction of Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy, where he writes about a wife selling, and then kind of looking at what era that was. And so that was in the 19th century. And I thought, okay, I've got a girl who works with the herbs, or she knows someone that works with the herbs, and something to do with, people believe she's a witch, but actually she's just a poet. She's just a poet. That's what she is. Like that's what witches were, right? They were herbalists and poets, and they were like us. We would probably all be burnt on the stake today by today's standards, by those standards. So I had my person. It started forming this idea, and then because it was lockdown, and I couldn't really go out and visit the places, so I had to do lots and lots of research. And which were the weaving villages of Norfolk? And when I discovered that there's a little village about 30 minutes north of Norwich by car called Marsham, and it was on the banks or just south of a river called the Mermaid, because I knew that I wanted her to have a very strong connection with the natural world and a strong connection with the river. And as soon as I saw that name, Mermaid, I was like, right, I felt like the mermaid chose me rather than me choosing the mermaid. So I had my setting, I had my person, I had this idea, this kernel of an idea of she would be accused of being a witch in post witch trial days, but still very superstitious rural England, very poor mechanization, industrialization. That's, yeah, people are pretty desperate. They can't feed themselves and their families. And so surely that's perfect pressure cooker for what could an accusation, a witchcraft accusation, and potentially could also result in a difficult relationship and a wife selling. So that's where the initial inspiration came from.
That is really interesting that you brought in the wife selling as an idea even before you just started pulling the book together. That was such a shocking scene. And yeah, so awesome. Too much information. Forget I said that. I didn't say that at all. Anyway, so I do like how you have the two timelines and the two perspectives, because you do have, and I'll ask about Rose Crawford in a minute, but so you have Rosie and her world, and then you have the modern woman, Rose Crawford. And and why did you decide to do the two perspectives? Because you could have just had the historical fiction, but you really, I think you've touched on this before, but was there any thinking that went into that where you felt like you really had to have the twin timelines?
Yeah, I think I probably answered that from when I was speaking before.
Yeah, I think so.
I think I have. As I said, the one of them can't really exist without the other. And it's
Yeah.
difficult to say too much more without giving it away. But I, I wanted to explore two women who are really very, very, very different, but they have an inability to conform to society's expectations, and they also um they have a deep love of storytelling. I mean, for Rose, it's something that comes later in her life, but they both love writing and they both love storytelling, and that's what connects them, and this inability to conform. I mean, another theme that I really touch on in the novel is, I think it's I don't know. I feel like I haven't read a lot in books that the narrative around women who choose to remain single and feel like they can only be their true, authentic selves without being a mother, without being the partner to someone. And okay, for Rose, that story is a little bit, it takes a little while longer for that to settle, but I just don't feel like it's a very well explored narrative.
Mhm.
And so that was something that I really wanted to honor, actually, because there's many women for whom that is a choice. They don't want to be married. They feel strong and powerful and authentic and their true selves when they're on their own. And okay, that's not me, but it is many women, and I wanted to explore that as well. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because you really couldn't have had that sort of a theme really engaged in too much in 200 years in the past. That was just far less acceptable.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
if you really want to be, accused of something, just be a woman all by yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, what I want to ask is, I know you didn't read anything from about Rose Crawford, but can you tell us anything about her at all? Any little tiny bit, just to
Yeah.
flesh her out
Yeah,
a tiny
sure.
bit.
Sure. So Rose is in her mid 30s. She's a Londoner through and through. She's mixed race. She, yeah, half Ghanaian, half English. She's barely left London. She's one of these London people that doesn't really feel like life exists outside of London. She loves it so much. The countryside for her is kind of a scary place. and her only real experience of the countryside has been a disastrous D&V expedition many years before, which she hated every single moment of. But as I mentioned previously, so she has this very traumatic experience, and a very close friend of hers says to her, look, I've got this great uncle. I never see him, but he lives in this sort of rambling house in North Norfolk, and I think he's quite lonely. He's on his own. He's with his dog, but I really don't think he'd mind if you went and stayed with him for a little while. So Rose initially is very deeply skeptical, and she's like, oh, that's just weird. He's an old man and he's probably never seen a black person before. And so her friend is saying, don't be so ridiculous. Just go. You need to get out of London. Just go and have a break. And so she does. And little by little, she learns to grieve this traumatic experience. There's this very kind of sweet, gentle friendship evolves between the two of them. She's taking the dogs for lots of walks, and she realizes the countryside is not something to be feared. And more than that, it's something that can really kind of nurture her in her grief. And it comes as such a surprise to her. And then she also, she reads a lot while she's there, with something that she loved doing as a child and just got bashed out of her. She loved writing as a child. Again, it just got bashed out of her, which kind of was my experience, actually. At primary school, I read, well, no, I kept on reading actually, but I wrote voraciously, and I had an amazing primary school teacher who really encouraged me. But then my secondary school was very dry and academic, and I didn't do any writing for a very long time. And so that part of Rose's experience was very much my experience, that she didn't, just a long desert period of not doing anything kind of creatively in that way. But yeah, she gets inspired by the River Mermaid, by the heath, by the marshlands, by the woodlands, by these long walks she's taking, and she starts slowly healing. Yeah.
I would think that when you've had a shock, sometimes you need to connect with something that's timeless, or certainly works on a different time scale than the human life. And it's just the natural aspects. And I'm glad you mentioned the great uncle. I think his name is George. I adore the platonic love that this elderly man and Rose developed, this platonic friendship, this platonic wonderful relationship. And it's one of my favorite parts actually of the book. Is that based on any sort of real life experience, or did it just develop naturally and organically throughout the book?
Well, no, I mean, I haven't had that kind of close friendship with a much older man, but it feels to me quite countercultural. I think
Mm.
I think that, a lot of people will sort of jump to conclusions that he's being so friendly with her and he's just being a bit pervy or something. But, I just think it doesn't have to be like that. Actually, he's 86. He's 86. So he's an old guy, but he's a very fit, sprightly, healthy old man. His wife died a long time ago. He's been living alone for a long time. He's very fit. He walks his dog. The dog is based on my mother's lovely dog. It's got a different name, but I love my mother's dog, and I spend a lot of time with this dog, so I based him on that dog. But no, I haven't had that experience. But as I said, it feels countercultural, and I think it's really important to remember these unusual friendships that we don't think of that. We think that someone has to be, I don't know, in a vaguely similar age bracket or the same gender, but this is so different. She's a Londoner. She's a black woman. He's an old white man from the countryside. But somehow they just, as you say, it's this really just sweet, gentle, slow burning friendship, just deep mutual fondness for each other. And that is it, without any extra anything dodgy in it. It's just lovely. It's a lovely close friendship.
Well, I'll tell you, you wrote it perfectly, because when I finished my PhD, I did it in Winchester, but we live in York. So I rented the top floor from this old fellow, and we had this kind of relationship. Brian was wonderful. He was just a dear dear friend. And I think he died at 94 or something. And I met him when he was 86 or 87. And it was just great because everything about that rang really true for me. So I like that you've brought this into your book because it will remind people that you're allowed to have friendships. They don't always have to have some frisson of something in the background. They don't always have to be with someone your same age cohort or your same gender. And I think that's actually a really important aspect that you've just given the world as a gift as part of this book. And so I just that was truly one of I just adored George. I mean, so that was really great. I'm going to read two comments that I have seen. Here we got one from Joanna. There is a plaque here in Norwich by the river where a ducking stool was. Maybe you know of it. I think we have to rush off and find this ducking stool. They were doing that. It's just this pseudo hangover from the witch trials and the like. But so there's a ducking stool to explore in Norwich. And then Ruth has said, I'm not much of a wild swimmer, but I have swum in The Mermaid, and it was magical. And I cannot wait to read the book.
Oh, which Ruth is that?
I'm going to scroll up and see that. And I see Alan's got a comment
Is
now.
that Ruth? Ruth Taylor?
It's Ruth from Norwich.
Yeah. You can
in The
all unmute
Mermaid.
yourself and ask questions too, by the way. Yes, that is awesome. So tell us a little bit about that if you want to, Ruth.
Oh, yeah, happily. Yeah, I'm not really into the whole really, really cold water thing unless it's really, really hot.
No, I'm not either.
But I have a friend who is a really avid wild swimmer, and we went into a tiny kind of branch of it. I don't know very much about it, but I know we walked across a very beautiful field with woodland on one side. And when I say swim, it wasn't really a swim, it was more a kind of, I wasn't said ducking, that's the wrong thing, but I just kind of, we could lie in it because it was a tiny, like, sort of like a little branch of it. And you could see really clearly to the bottom, and it was a bit reedy, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was so clear. So I hope this is all not disturbing what's in the book, but this particular part was, yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous. And it was a really magical moment for me to go and do that with this friend who sort of enticed me in, and it was a super hot day. So yeah,
Ruth,
it's
you're
great.
going to have to because I must confess,
Let's go.
I've swum in a lot of rivers, but I have not swum in the Mermaid. So you're going to
Let's
have to take
go.
me there. Let's
Yeah,
go.
it's near Elsham. We'll do it.
Just do it. Amazing.
That sounds like a really good plan. I see Alexandra Britton has written, we met with Rebecca in Nairobi about 10 years ago and had so many little coincidences, both ending, living or leaving in Norfolk. I'm really looking forward to reading her new book, which we spoke about a while back. Rebecca is still writing, and I'm growing and blending herbs and fermenting vegetables. That sounds good. I guess it is another little coincidence. Thank you, Rebecca. So you've got people from all over here.
Yeah, it's so lovely seeing
That's
people
what I
in
thought it would
different
be
parts of
living.
my life, like Nairobi as well. And yeah, it's super lovely.
No, that's cool. And Alan comments that he feels that, in his opinion, only in the last few years that people of color feel that they could venture into the countryside. And that may be true because I think I'm only now seeing a lot of people of color going into museums, which used to really bother us because it would say, come on, it's your museum too. So I can see that does ring true that Rose would be like, I don't know,
It was something that at some time there was a campaign to try and encourage black or coloured people to to go into the countryside, and I've also experienced a number of people who have moved into villages and have had great difficulty trying to differentiate between whether it's because they're an outlander or they're coloured, and their experience colours their experience of how people accept them in the countryside, where whereas in some cases you're very welcome, but you're an outlander, as opposed to we don't like you because you're black. And trying to differentiate for some people has been very, very difficult over the years.
I really hope that's easing because I think as the world becomes, well, I wouldn't say look at my country, the where I am right now, and make any judgments, but I would like to think that that is slowly easing. It is apparently up in York. We're getting a bit more multicultural up there, and thank God for that. Does anyone want to chime in with any more comments or ask a couple of questions? Because I absolutely, I encourage you to do so, and you can ask things, and if you haven't read the book, Rebecca will answer as carefully as possible. But it's tricky, but we'll do our very best. And I'll put you back on gallery view. And
I've got a question.
Yes, hi, Sabine.
Sabina,
Welcome.
yeah, hi. Yeah, Bex, I'm just really interested in knowing a little bit more about the research that you did for the book. So, like the research about Amelia Opie and how you wove her into the story, which I really loved. And things like what you read about the spider, like almost like a spell to go with the herbs. And was that something that you created, or was that something you came across in an old herbalist book? Or yeah, just love to know a little bit more about those things.
Yeah, thanks, Sabina. Yeah, I love researching. It's so fascinating. That's why I feel like I can never quite move away from historical fiction, because it's so fun finding out these things. Right. I mean, it's not giving anything away at all, but right at the start of the book, there's a scene in the market where she's just 6 years old, and there's a couple of people who are being paraded around by their patron, the gigantic lad of Lincolnshire. He's a very hugely overweight boy, and then a tiny little woman, and then getting them to perform, and then going around with an upturned hat. Like, these were real people. Like, it's just so horrifying that this happened, but we know this had happened. But yeah, lots and lots and lots of different sources. I mean, I knew about Amelia Opie. Amelia Opie is a little bit of a local Norwich legend. She was very active in the abolitionist movement. She was a real socialite, and then she found faith and she became a strong Quaker, and that drove her abolitionist work. And there's paintings of her and lots of it's very easy to find information about Amelia Opie. So the more I read about her, the more I thought, well, she was a woman writer. She was one of the few female writers who did use her name. She didn't change it to a male name. And so I just completely out of my imagination tried to think, okay, how would a meeting go between Rosie and Amelia? Rosie is so inspired by this female writer that doesn't change her name to a man, that is actually writing, that calls herself an authoress. And so, yeah, Amelia, it was easy to find him. There's books about her, lots of stuff about her on the web. The one you mentioned, Sabina, from the piece I read, yes, this is all old folklore books. I dug out old folklore books. I've got old, not specific to Norfolk, because that I did find quite difficult to find. I mean, I'm sure there's a whole world out there of Norfolk lore, but yes, these were spells that people would say, and I tried really hard to just to make it as authentic as I possibly could. And I do also have a little caveat right at the start of the book of we have to also use our artistic license as writers, imagine scenes. But yes, I did do loads of research. It was tricky though, because a lot of the book I wrote during lockdown, as I said, so I was having to rely quite heavily on online sources. But then as soon as the libraries reopened, I was there in a flash and gobbling up every possible book I could get. So yeah, libraries have been a dear friend to me. I didn't buy an awful lot of books. I did buy a book. I found it at a little market somewhere on Norfolk Speak. I wish that when I was reading my passage, I could have done the Norfolk accent, but I love the Norfolk accent so much. It's so fantastic. Whenever we have an allotment, we're always surrounded by people that just with this beautiful Norfolk accent, but I'm not going to massacre it, so I'm not even going to attempt it. But yes, I got lots of phrases from this book that you'll find. Well, one that I do know that everyone that lives in Norfolk knows is mardlin, which means chatting. You go down the pub to have a mardle. That's a Norfolk word. I love the local dialect words. I've done a nice little sprinkling of Norfolk dialect in the book as well. It was really fun researching that.
I'm really glad that you brought that up, Sabine, because I was thinking at the time, oh, the poor spider.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, poor old spiders.
Poor thing. Hope it really helps the whooping cough.
Yeah.
And I did think about that, about the accent too. I thought to myself, gosh, it's a shame she can't do the accent, but it's a bit tricky to do it authentically and not sound like a caricature. And so you were wise. You were wise. I see a comment here from Carolyn. I wonder if you've read the Robert McFarlane book about rivers.
Yeah, do you know, I have not. It's very remiss of me. It's on my big old pile of books to be read. Caroline, did you love it?
If she's still there, I don't know, but you can unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
she's
Yeah,
just
good, good,
unmuting
good. Yeah,
herself.
good,
Yeah,
good.
I'm here. No, I haven't read it, but I heard him talking about it on the radio and it sounded wonderful. I just think it's such a powerful movement in a way about, rivers have personalities and our beings, and we need to absorb that into our consciousness. And yeah, I thought it was amazing. However, I haven't read it yet, so you know.
Yeah, I also heard him speak. He came to Norwich, and I went to the talk, and it's kind of making its way to the top of my to be read list. But just briefly on that, so I started watching last night. Channel 4 did a documentary called Dirty Business, all about the pollution. I really urge everyone to watch it if you haven't done. All about the pollution of our rivers and raw sewage being poured into our river. It is so horrifying. I mean, I don't need to tell you that, but so disturbing, so horrifying. We all need to do our bit to speak out against this. England has just done an appalling job of protecting the natural world. It's the most nature depleted country in Europe, one of the most nature depleted countries in the world, and yet everyone has this idea of this rural idyll, which is not the case. And so I think in a very gentle way, it's not overt at all, but I wanted also this book to be a little bit of a call to action of just protecting our natural world. Like how can we do that? How can we protect our rivers? How can we protect our seas? And I think, I would say one of the ways we can do this is by there's this wonderful writer, children's book writer called Ruth Krauss, who says everyone should sit by a little river and be quiet. And I think that's one way we can do it. We need to be still. We need to be quiet. We need to listen to the natural world. And I absolutely applaud anyone around the world that is engaging in giving personhood to rivers. They've done that in New Zealand. They're doing it. I think it's a movement that's growing and growing and growing. It's like writing the book has because I do a lot of wild swimming, and people say to me, "Oh, but the rivers are so dirty." I'm like, yes. And that is an abomination, and I don't accept that. So I'm going to keep swimming in the rivers. I'm not going to put my head under. I'm not going to swallow any water, but I don't accept that. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of the writing of this book has also encouraged me to, think about my own local river and what can I do, and can I organize a pilgrimage and walking along it to, the source, and just thinking more and more and more about how we can join together in community to protect our water. I was so horrified by this program. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about that now. But do watch it, Dirty Business. It's really shocking.
Well, that's a soapbox any one of us can get on. I put down this fact that, from what I understand, pretty much 100% of all of the public waters in England have been subjected to pollution and discharge of raw sewage. All of them. All of them. Wales is doing better, I think, and Scotland is far, far better. But England is not. One thing that's really important is I think children have to be taught from an early age to respect and love and feel comfortable in nature. And that's probably, if we can, find time to take any small people in our lives, grandchildren, niece, nephews, anything, to a river or to the outside. And you won't love what you don't know. And if all you really know is scuttling out the door to school and scurrying home at night to do homework and whatnot, and then you're on your phones, you don't necessarily feel a connection to anything that you're not really, it's not part of your life. And so I think that it's good if the adults do it, we model good behavior, but also take them along. Have them come along with you to a river cleanup a session, going somewhere and I'm glad someone, the personhood of rivers is deeply important. And I love that. I think New Zealand did do it first. It is across the place now. There's places in I believe South America, and I love it because they are living, they move, they bring life. It's not quite, like taking, nourishment in and stuff, but they are living and they provide life. And so that's really important. So yeah, I think that our part as the grown-ups here is to make sure that we introduce the little people in our lives to the water.
Just really briefly, so for any of you who live in this area in the east, I'm going to be running 3 workshops at Aylsham Library. So Aylsham is very close to Marsham where this is set. They're called Writing the River. So we're going to be also going to the river as part of the workshop and doing exactly that, listening to the river in Rosie style, true Rosie style, and hearing what the river wants to tell us. So and then an opportunity for you to share your work in the last session where we'll have, like the Q&A and stuff in the library. But anyway, that's coming up. But if you're interested in that, that's next month. Please just drop me a line. Yes.
Awesome. Well, I think we're pretty much ready to draw this to a close. Okay, no, I've got something from Nick. Oh, but this is also Carolyn. This is Carolyn. Hello. Really enjoyed all the readings. Lots of things you've mentioned about your book, Rebecca, are leading me to read it so much. So I bought it a few minutes ago. I love reading books set in this era. It always chimes with me. Norfolk accent is so nuanced, like you say, difficult to replicate. I wouldn't dare try to either. I'll come swimming in the mermaid with you too. Thank you so much
Carolyn.
for this evening. And then Kezia has said, are you aware of the Upper Boer Riverlands project?
I'm not, Kezia. So can you drop me an email, please, and let me know about that? I'm not, and it sounds like I need to be. So yes, please.
That sounds like a really good thing. We have one more new message here. Will do, says Kezia.
Yes.
And great. So anyone want to add a little question, or should we draw this event to a close? Let me see. I'll open it. Let me put it back onto gallery view. And is anyone? Yes, Nick, did you want to say anything? Yeah, come on up, Nick. Unmute yourself, darling. Yep, go on. Just unmute it if you wish.
I think they're just.
Oh, they're just waving.
I just want to say goodbye and thank you.
Not drowning, waving.
Bye, Carolyn and Nick. Thanks for coming.
Right, definitely. Rachel said she's very pleased she came on the call. You're an amazing woman. Bex and Defo buying your book. Really looking forward, says Linda, to reading the book. Will be the second book in a few months that I read that has river as a key. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks, Linda. What was the first, Linda? The first book? I feel like rivers are a little bit all the rage right now. I can't wait to read Elif Shafak's There Are Rivers in the Sky. I don't know if anyone's read that, but I'm really excited to read that. I think I'm going to read that.
I haven't read it, but I have heard of it. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So the reason I'm reading these out also is because the chat would not appear on the YouTube. And so I just wanted to make sure that any questions or any comments got in there. Okay, Diane Setterfield's Once Upon a River.
I've heard of it, but I've not read that, Linda.
Yes, Rachel, please speak.
Yeah, Rach.
Unmute yourself, darling, and join us.
Yeah, hi, Bex. I just wanted to say that it's very apt to be on this call because yesterday I went to Southend Estuary to scatter my dad's ashes. That was his wishes. And you can do it in a eco-friendly way. So, but we sung a song. I don't know if people know it, but "The River Is Flowing." I just felt called to start singing it. I've sung it on lots of different pilgrimages, and this whole evening has just made me think. Obviously, I do a lot of campaign work. Against the Sewage with the Citizens Arrest Network. But I can't wait to read your book, and you're just so inspiring how you have managed to have in all this doom still have imagination and motivation. So I just wanted to thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. Well, you are hugely inspiring to me as well. So lovely to have you here.
And good luck with everything. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to get your book and read it. It was so interesting because last year when I met you, you were talking to me about it, and now to see it published is amazing.
Yeah, I'm very happy to send Rosie off downstream. It's just been really, really, really lovely to see you all. Thank you so much for coming and celebrating with me. I've loved having you here. And again, Rose and Alan, thank you so much for making this a reality after so long. And thank you, Lizzie and Lucy as well.
Yeah, I'm going to read one last comment that I'm seeing from Serena. I did want this one to be missed. It says, "My line was not good enough to put the camera on, but I loved so much listening to you and got thoroughly captivated from your story. Can't wait to read the book and chat about it. Sounds wonderful. Congratulations." And AW says, "Big love, big congrats to you, loveliest Bex."
Oh, Alala, you're here.
Oh, that's from Alala. Great. Yes, I hope we. And then Bex Sanchez, "I still carry Luisa and Eduardo with me, the characters in your first book, The Poet's Wife. You have such an incredible way of bringing your characters alive. So I too look forward to reading about Rosie and Rose." And while I got the mic, I'll say, Lizzie Dunford, thank you so much for your poems. I really, really, I will thank you again for that. And also Lucy Lowe's Paget, thank you so much for reading from your upcoming novel. We were delighted to be here tonight, Rebecca. I love hearing you read, and it was a good event. And thank you for attending. And I will definitely have Rebecca say the final words to your friends.
Oh, just huge gratitude to all of you. Super lovely to see you. Tell me what you think about the book. Just message me. And if you see any mistakes, can you also message me? Because someone's already told me a mistake. Like, oh my God. So please, let me know. But I really hope you enjoy it. And let me know. And masses of love to all of you. Thank you for coming. And Sabina, I'll see you at the pub in 10 minutes.
Awesome. Love Tom. It's a wonderful read. I've read it already and it's so great. So, and look forward to it, everyone.
Lots of love, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Bye. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Bex.
Thank you.
Bye.